Hey everybody, welcome to Old Roommates. Today on the show, we revisit the classic comedy TV series Bewitched, starring Elizabeth Montgomery, Dick York, and Agnes Moorehead as Endora. So grab your broomstick and get ready.
Hey everyone, welcome to Old Roommates, the only podcast. What did I just do? I've done this before.
That revisits?
I know.
Oh.
You know what it is? Alright, so it's the only podcast that revisits pop culture through a middle-aged lens.
Wow.
But you know what's funny is when I don't think of it, it just flies out of my mouth. And then when I start thinking about it, I'm like, why does it seem weird? I don't know. I'm losing my mind. It's all this quarantining. That's the problem.
Yes, we are quarantining.
We are quarantining.
What I like is that you just admitted there are sometimes that you don't think about what you're doing.
Most of the time, I don't think about what I'm doing. I do better when I'm not thinking about what I'm doing.
So, here we are. We are still social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
We're at my house. We have definitely a good 8 to 10 feet separating us.
I can barely see you. I know. Because we have all these barriers and pillows and blankets and boxes.
Listen, guys, we're playing by the rules. We know it's hard. This is why we sound so echoey sometimes. But we're here to do our jobs.
Yes.
Which is to revisit pop culture. How do we do that, Christina?
And we entertain.
No!
Our job is
through a middle-aged lens.
No. Our jobs are to entertain our listeners.
Well, with the truth. With
our opinions.
With our opinions.
It's not necessarily the same thing.
I don't know. I mean, if they find entertainment in this, that's great. But I am here to do my job, and that is to revisit pop culture through my middle-aged lens and to see if I was right when I was younger, or if I was wrong. And maybe I just needed some years.
Well, that's interesting because we have never asked that question on the show. Were you right or were you wrong? I'm going to start asking you that question.
My God.
At the end of every episode. So, Brian, were you right or were you wrong?
Oh, that's funny.
When you were 18.
I guess that's how I view it, because but I think we get there. I think we answer the question as we go.
Well, we ask if we liked it or
not. Bewitched.
Ah, Bewitched.
My God.
So
this is 19...
so we revisited the first season.
The first season of
seasons.
Bewitched.
We revisited the first season, 1964.
Yeah.
This is the oldest revisit we've
absolutely.
done. Unless, what the Christmas ones?
Oh, the Christmas ones, you're right, yeah.
Are those older than 64?
Oh, God, I don't know.
I don't know either. I feel like they were the 70s. But this is so cool, right? So, 1964, Elizabeth Montgomery, Dick York, like you said. In the later seasons, it was Dick Sargent.
Yeah.
Brian, what are your thoughts about Bewitched? Like, what was your introduction to Bewitched? When did you watch it?
Thank you for finally asking. So obviously I was not alive. I think the last season of Bewitched came out the year I was born. I believe that's true. So this is like on Channel 56, or, growing up and grew up in, South Shore, Massachusetts. So I think it was Channel 56 then, had all the reruns of classic sitcoms. Is
right.
that right?
Maybe 38 too.
38?
It was like, and then later it was like 25. Remember when that turned into Fox? It's so weird.
Right. It's weird.
So strange. But 44 I think was one too.
But you know what though? To that point, I'm glad we had that same upbringing. Like those same contact points, because I don't have to explain over and over.
Right. So the listeners have no idea what we're talking about, but we know what we're talking about.
So there's always that network that shows, like, typically between like 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. they show a bunch of old sitcoms, and this is one of them. They still do that, I'm guessing. Bewitched was one of them, and I'm going to be honest, as a kid, I truly only watched for the special effects. And Endora. Like, Endora was, like, whether you knew it or not, she was the comic relief. She was the monkey wrench in the works, but she was also so colorful.
Yes.
Excuse me. she was just so colorful too, and that it was fun to watch. And I think in later seasons there was Tabitha, the daughter.
Yes.
And was there actually a cat? Like, why do I feel like there was a cat?
There
I know
was
there's a cat in the.
They had a son, Adam.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah,
So
a couple of years younger than him. That was probably like the season 8.
Oh wow!
And he did not have the powers, but Tabitha did.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. So, but I remember liking it. I watched it truly just for special effects and some comedy here and there. But yeah, I liked it. I thought back when we talked about revisiting this. I thought back. My first thought was fondly, like thinking back fondly on this show. How about you?
So. Pretty similar. I watched it after school, and I remember it being, I don't know if you remember this at all, but they were, and I don't know if it was on 56 or not, it must have been, but I remember it being Bewitched, and then I Dream of Jeannie right after it.
Oh, wow.
So it was like a half hour of this and a half hour of that. And I loved it. I loved the show so much. I really, really loved it. More than I liked I Dream of Jeannie. I think I just watched that because, I liked I Dream of Jeannie, but I really, really loved Bewitched. I perfected the nose twitch.
Oh, let's see. Oh, wow.
Right? Mm-hmm. I'll have to do that on like a video. I can't, because of the mask. Maybe I'll do it like, everyone is very impressed with my nose twitch. I agree. I loved the special effects and just what, kind of hijinks they were going to come up with. My view of Endora back then as a child, I felt like she was mean. I didn't necessarily get that she was the comic relief when I was watching it back then. I don't know how old I was, but I was pretty young. I was probably, elementary school for sure. I want to say like 8 or 9 or 10, somewhere around there. So to me, not that I really understood all of the storylines. I think many of the storylines were quite similar. But Endora always just sort of being mean to Darrin, I thought was mean and kind of bullyish. So I didn't particularly love her as a child. But as an adult, thinking about her, of course, I love.
I think sometimes the laugh track like gave me peace back when I was a child of like knowing like it's okay. She's mean, but in a funny way. Right. Like that, I think, is what kind of helped me.
And I also remember that whole like Dick Sargent. Like I watched it pretty religiously, and I remember really liking Dick Sargent even more so than Dick York. I don't remember when it became colorized. I think 64, so it was until what, 72 rather. So I'm not sure when it became colorized, but obviously Dick Sargent were the later seasons.
That's right.
And
do you know why that switch happened?
Yes. So Dick York, he had some back issues from a previous movie that he had been on, and he became dependent on the painkillers.
And also drinking.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, they drank constantly in the show, so if that was real. But, yes. But from what I understand, so I love that. But we can dive into now, I suppose. I love there was a lot of controversy, I guess, surrounding the Dicks, like Dick York to Dick Sargent and all that. But reading up on it now, Dick Sargent was pretty well received, but it was a very different play on that character, on Darrin, where he played it a lot kinder. And I think that was more well received from the audience.
Oh, funny.
Dick York's character was always mad at Samantha. Always, always mad. And there was an interview that I read from Dick York saying that he really enjoyed Dick Sargent's character, when he replaced him. But he was getting sick of playing Darrin because he kept yelling. All he did was yell at Samantha all day.
Oh, wow.
And with Dick York coming on, he was a lot kinder and he was a lot more sort of forgiving and more of like, oh, well.
But maybe, though, well, wait a second. I feel like that would make sense because he's used to it.
Right.
Like, unless you're going to divorce your wife, who is a witch, Like, you probably just have to get used to it. And,
True.
And I think it was like, so if we're diving into now.
Although, let me just say one thing.
Yeah.
One thing about that. They did say that some of the Dick Sargent episodes were actually some of the same exact stories that, even like dialogue, as some of the ones that Dick York were in.
Really?
I didn't figure out which ones were which, but I think that would be interesting to look at. So there was obviously a different way that he played it with the same storylines.
I'm sure there has to be some, like, over time where you just get used to these, say, quirks of your spouse. And so maybe that's why there was a decision that was made to make Darrin more easygoing with Samantha's stuff.
And I think that might have been part of why Dick York was so upset about it, too. Like, hey, he should be used to it by now.
It's also kind of funny, because you bring up something that I didn't even write down. Is that, like, Darrin is, like, this very hard-working advertising executive, and he's overworked. We know this. He's super stressed out.
Yes.
And yet, he wants this sort of idyllic home life, and even the narration of these episodes, so Bewitched, for the unfamiliar, starts out, at least season 1, with a narrator who's sort of doing almost like a Norman Rockwell slice of Americana, like,
yes.
The average housewife will make sure the house is all in order by the time her husband comes home. And that kind of thing. And every episode started that way.
Good impersonation.
And then, Samantha would just struggle in different ways because she has never been a wife before. And so, occasionally she would, move her nose and create some witchcraft to make things a little easier. And it's always a laugh. I have to say, 1964, the special effects are incredible.
I was very impressed.
Even now. I'm
very
like, even now I was like, oh my god, this was like a sitcom. And like the special effects, like, bong, bing, bong. Like, I know it's all stopping. I know it's all stop motion and people walking in and out of frames. And I know how it's done.
Yes.
But it's done rather seamlessly. And
I was very impressed, too. I didn't know what to expect.
And the timing is funny, too. Like,
yes.
But really quick, that, to your point about Darrin getting annoyed and then he wasn't annoyed, you kind of wonder, didn't quite get his argument why he didn't want her to make her life easier. Normal. The word was normal.
Normal was used everywhere.
Just like Three's Company. The word was normal, and we have to... have a lot to dive into in terms of that. But the idea of it being a normal household. But it's mostly the two of them. He doesn't even meet Endora until several episodes later. So where's the harm in making their life a little easier so Darrin's not a stress case? Because to your point, Darrin is often flustered and frustrated. So, but he's then telling Samantha, don't make life easier for us. But it's but you're struggling.
Well, he doesn't want her to be different.
Right.
I think that's what it boils down to. He wants everything to be normal, quoting Darrin, and he doesn't want, and I think that was a pretty common theme back in the 60s. Like, you just wanted to be like everyone else. Well, you want the appearance to be the same. So I think that's where that is coming from, but I thought it was really interesting that he didn't find out she was a witch until after they got married.
Such a witchy thing to do.
I'm like, ooh, that's kind of interesting.
My first take on Darrin, though, on Dick York, did he not get serious Jim Carrey vibes?
Totally.
And Carl said it, too. You were watching it, it was like...
And I never noticed that before. I mean, obviously I was a child or whatever, but... I wouldn't have known who Jim Carrey was, but yeah, totally.
And a lot of physical comedy. When you mention the back problem, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened on Bewitched. He has to fall down a lot, and, that kind of thing.
Lots of pratfalls. For sure.
How do we want... We're just going to jump all around. We're not going to do episode by episode.
We don't know. I don't think so.
So we watched, just for you guys, if you're going to, play along at home, we watched episodes 1 through 4. By the way... you said black and white. Mine were colorized.
Really?
Yeah, and I have to say...
Oh my gosh!
I actually I liked it. The only weird part of the colorization was Tate, Darrin's boss, Mr. Tate, Larry Tate.
Yeah.
His gray hair, like, they didn't quite do it right, and it would, like, sort of trace on the screen a little bit.
Weird.
Yeah. That was
interesting.
The only thing. So we watched...
I enjoyed watching the black and white, to be honest. It was strange at first, but I really grew to enjoy it. Yeah. Although I found myself saying, I wonder what color dress she has on. I wonder what color she's wearing. I did find that kind of
Endora, though, I was happy it was colorized for me because Endora is such a colorful character, and like the flowing greens and the light green and the giant red hair. Like it's it's funny. I was curious what it would be like in black and white. Yeah. But I appreciated that it was colorized. I think they did a good job colorizing it. Then we watched episodes 11, 12. And
10, 11, 12, right?
10, 11, 12.
Okay.
Then episodes 20, 21, and then 35, 36.
Oh, okay. I did 22 also. But we might have gotten rid of that at some point.
I think it was I could have
The Eye of the Beholder.
What happens?
Let me see. Now I'm more interested in the present and future with Darrin. I don't know what happened. Oh, was it the picture? Did you see the one with the picture, the old picture of Samantha?
No.
Okay, yeah. So they're in an antique shop, and and Dora, of course, for no reason at all, she kind of makes a picture appear of Samantha from the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
And it brings up that she's actually hundreds of years old.
Oh, my God.
And so they talked a lot about that, like, what's going to happen when I'm, old and you're going to still be young.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of a touching episode.
Yeah.
Where he's sort of sitting around looking and watching old couples walk around, and he was upset that he wasn't going to have that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a touching episode. But
it's
anyway.
Interesting. There are so many, not metaphors, but, and maybe it's metaphors, like where there's so much about the show is about like the prejudice that Darrin feels towards witches, but more so of Endora feeling towards humans.
Yes.
And they don't really want them to meet, and they don't really, they don't really like each other. And Endora really disrespects Darrin because she keeps calling him Duncan or
Darwood. She never calls him the right name.
Delbert and all. Like it's so funny. I was impressed with how much mileage they got out of this because I was like, well, it's a story about like a wife who's a witch. How many plot lines could they have? But they really cranked them out. They
really did, and it was surprising that it was 8 seasons. Were you surprised when you found that?
Yeah, I was.
I was surprised. I would have guessed 4 or 5.
Same. Yeah.
But 8 seasons. So that was really interesting. And so what's interesting to me, so I don't even know how to get down.
Should we pick our favorite episodes of what we watched? We can dive into those and maybe ones that we didn't love so much.
The overall feel, let's talk about that first, then we can delve into some of the other episodes. I was so shocked at how incredibly sexist this whole series is. I wrote down quote after quote after quote after quote of her saying, just things like, I want to do what Darrin wants to do. He buys a house without her. Whatever you like, I'm going to like. She has no personality in terms of like her own likes, her own desires, except for maybe the fact that she's a witch. But even that, she's ready to give up. She's like, I'm just going to give up my witchiness because I love Darrin, and Darrin doesn't want it. And I think that even throughout all the episodes, it's just like this ongoing sexist attitude that I was like kind of shocked about. I'm like, it just keeps going on and on and on. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, did they just not care at all? I found it very glaring. Did you find that?
I found a lot of it. It's funny because, like, it is 1964.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's that expectation of that's what life is. Like, the husband works, the wife keeps the home, like, running smoothly and all that. but women, I mean, it didn't surprise me. What surprised me more, and it's similar, is like the friction that Samantha often feels is from other women. And it's not so much Darrin, putting, I mean, truly, like, she gets more annoyed when the hostess of a party is talking to Darrin than she does at Darrin calling her, saying, "Hey, honey, I'm bringing 6 people home. Can you get dinner ready?"
Right.
And she's like, "Of course, darling." It's like, but you're gonna be pissed off because a woman is talking to your husband, and you're not mad at Darrin.
Right.
You're mad at the woman for talking to your
very
husband.
interesting.
So
Darrin could do no wrong. Darrin could not do any wrong at all.
She's his wife.
And so what I thought was interesting was with Endora's character that I picked up now as a grown woman, that I had so much more respect for her because she's a mom and she wants her daughter to be happy, and she sees that she gets married to this man who doesn't let her be herself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's her big problem. That's her problem with Darrin. If Darrin let her be herself, Endora would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't. And I loved that part of it. I'm like, wow, this is great. I love her so much. And she's totally right.
Mm-hmm.
Totally right. Now, she does cause some problems. She,
tying up small children in the bedroom.
That was great. I love
that kind of small problem.
But, I mean, she causes problems for Darrin intentionally just to test him and things like that. So it's not very fair. But I think her heart is in the right place. She wants her daughter to be happy and be herself. And I love the relationship that Samantha and Endora have. I think they have a really nice, strong mother-daughter relationship.
I 1000% agree. Yeah. I love their relationship. It does feel mother-daughter, like of a certain age, you know, and the way they talk to each other very comfortably.
Sure.
Because you get a realer sense of who Sam actually is, and it is sad that her part about her that makes her special, she has to keep hidden.
Right.
And only use it when Darrin's not around, or Darrin won't find out,
or just always apologize for it. And
it's interesting.
It's very interesting.
I want to jump in quick because I don't want it to sound, at least from my point, that Samantha's a weak character, because she does a lot in these episodes where, where she really pushes against, like, she brings up, her, say, witch side, which is really just her feminist side.
Sure, it can be let's have it be a metaphor for feminism.
Yeah, it's like being strong, sticking up for yourself, being true to who you are.
Solving every problem.
I know. Darrin's episode 3, there is Darrin's. It's not Darrin's boss. It's like a client. It's a client.
It's his most important client.
Yep. Who is such a dog.
Oh, an asshole. Total asshole.
And basically he makes a pass at Sam.
Yes.
Samantha. And Samantha sticks up for
You can call him Sam.
Sam.
You can call her Sam.
And Samantha sticks up for herself and turns him into a dog.
Which is great.
His name, of course, Rex Barker.
Oh my god, I didn't even realize that. Isn't that so funny? Do you remember the conversation they had after that? Is that what you're going to get to? Darrin?
Darrin says to her, it's right here. Darrin, when Sam tells Darrin what happened, Darrin says, and I quote, "Look at how you're dressed, Sam." And then later, he sides with Rex.
Yes.
He thinks that Rex is in the right to make a pass at her because she was dressed a certain way. But not only that, Darrin also takes Rex's side because, and I quote, Darrin says to Sam, "You're just my wife."
I have it written down right here.
"You're just my wife. He's my livelihood."
Isn't that insane?
I had to pause it.
I had to pause it too.
I was like,
is this conversation really freaking happening?
What just happened? Episode 3. And, like, now, 2020, that is the most shocking disgusting. I mean,
it goes on and on too. It
Yeah.
goes on even before that, where she's like, he was making advances at me,
Yeah.
and he's like, he's my biggest client. Like,
Yeah.
he completely doesn't care at all. And then he actually says that, oh, you're exaggerating. He says to her, you're exaggerating. I'm like, Jesus Christ,
that
are you
is like
serious
so
right now?
textbook. I mean, that is so
It was
awful.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And she was not asking for it.
I think her dress had a buttoned up collar.
Yeah,
it was not. She wasn't.
And she didn't even really want to talk to him. She was busy. Did you see? He had to host. This is, I think, what you were referring to when he called up and was like, "Hey, I'm going to have some people over." She ends up hosting this banquet with how many people? 50 people in their house.
That was one of the times. The other time was the model. Speaking of animals,
Ling Ling?
Cat Ling Ling.
Yeah.
And Darren's like, no, it'll be no problem. And the photographer's like, can I come and bring my girlfriend? Sure. Hey, Sam,
Sure.
6 people.
Six
We're
people.
on our way.
We're on our way.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. Oh my God, if Matt ever did that, I'd be like, okay, here's some popcorn. I gotta take a shower. Make you
Oh my God. But going back to your original
Yes.
point about feminism and how sexist it was, it was kind of it's pretty bleak.
Very.
And then you have, oh my God, and then you have the neighbor Gladys Kravitz.
Poor Gladys.
Who is right. She is seeing magical, witchy behavior.
Mm-hmm.
She tells her husband, just through the
Abner,
just through circumstance, by the time he gets to the window, it's not happening anymore. And he said, Gladys, time for your medicine.
Right. And what is it? Cough syrup he's giving her?
No idea.
He comes over with this bottle of cough syrup and a spoon.
It's so
and then she
disturbing.
questions herself. And I felt like at some point in the series, she actually does see things for real, or she finds out really what happens. They never admit it. And they probably, maybe they erased her memory or something like that. Probably does something like that.
Oh.
But I think at one point in the series, she does end up finding out. But poor Gladys, oh my God, even back then I always felt bad for her. It was almost like that whole thing in Sesame Street where, Big Bird only saw Snuffleupagus and they all treated him like he was crazy.
Although I did laugh.
That.
This is very funny. When Gladys is very nosy and snoopy.
Yes.
And so she's looking out the window. And she sees the garden magically appear. The trees grow, right?
Yes.
And so she says, Abner.
Which is kind of irresponsible of Samantha and Dora. They're
There's
making the
no
whole
one's-
lawn
yeah.
before they're going to buy the house. She's like, oh well, what about a gate here, or a fence here, and bushes here, and all this. Is Gladys the only neighbor that's going to see this?
Good point. Sorry, I'm eating. Gladys says, Abner, come here. And he says, I'm retired.
Abner was funny. They kind of reminded me a little bit of the Ropers.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. A lot of similarities between Three's Company now. I'm thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. So what else? Let's go. What other episode? Oh, and then at the end of that other one, that episode number 3, when she gets basically molested or attempted to be molested. Yeah. At the end, the client gets to the door, and he said something like, "I've got a problem," and he laughs, like he had a drinking problem or something. So because he ends up coming back,
making another pass at her.
He makes another pass, and then Darrin punches him out, but then he ends up hiring him at the end. It was just bizarre. Mm-hmm. Bizarre. All right, so
I have a quick note here. It says, for episode 4, it says, I like how the show speaks to women just being, quote, expected to be perfect at everything. And they wrote first time at... There's a comment someone says about it being their first time at bat. There is that, because the show sets itself up every episode with that narration. And it is. It's
but that
it's
narration stops on number 4.
Really?
Yeah. Episode number 4 is where the narration stops.
Oh
but they do have a little cold opening that they...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that's but even still, there is this idea that it's Sam's never been a wife before.
Right.
So you can almost even separate the witch part And like if you're like a woman growing up at home and you are not expected to move out and live on your own, you're expected to get married and move in with your husband, right?
Right.
So you're just moving out. Like, you're not going to know how to do every damn thing in the house unless, like, you're being coached by your parents.
I think it was expected. Yeah. I think that's what they taught them at home.
Yeah.
In the 60s. I think that's what they taught you. They taught you how to do laundry. They taught you how to cook and make meals and please your husband.
Crazy.
That's what it was. It is completely crazy. So, number 4 is when he finally meets Endora.
Yeah.
So, and that's when she's like, he's trying to change you. And I wrote, yep. And, oh my gosh, and I had to laugh at the amount of food that she does make. So it's the two of them, just the two of them living there. She made him a cake. This cake.
I know.
I can't even, how big is this? Like an 18-inch diameter? And it was probably like 3 layers high? For 2 people. And it was supposed to be for him, for no reason at all. And then the same thing happened with another, like, whole meal. Like, she made, like, a turkey. Like, a whole turkey dinner or something for them. So that was kind of funny. So she's, trying to do a good job, I guess.
I like when episode 4, Gladys and Abner, when Gladys calls Abner from the phone in Sam's kitchen. She's like, Abner, you're not going to believe this. And she goes, it's Gladys! I don't even know this guy's voice.
They're cute. I really liked the comic relief. That was really fun. Did you think it was funny that for when Endora was coming over, they got dressed in formal wear? Like, Darrin was wearing a tux.
Yeah.
And, Samantha was wearing, like, this formal dress just to meet Endora. That was kind of cute.
The self-lighting cigarette is what I was really blown away by that. Endora has a self-lighting cigarette. Like in episode, maybe episode 4? Or episode 10?
It must have been in 4,
4 or 10. But she says something along the lines of, her cigarette lights by itself. And she says, Samantha, what you call normal lives, I call asinine. I was like, oh wow. And I wrote, the Darrin and Endora fight is good. The only thing that makes it sitcom-y actually is the laugh track.
Yes.
Like, if you took away the laugh track, it's drama.
Yes.
The only thing that makes it comedy is the fake laughing. And I feel like it almost made it took away something. Because that sounds like a very real... Like, I remember, like...
Right.
Like, so we watched this a couple weeks ago, and I remember... But that scene where they're arguing with each other, like, that's really good acting. And it could be taken as comedy. It could be taken as drama. And that's really... They do it really well.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big difference today, where they do mix the drama and the comedy in one show. Whereas back then, I think it was like, if it's a comedy everything has to be funny.
Yeah, that's right.
Everything has to be, hilarious. So that was interesting. And so, in the next episode that we watched was number 10, and that's when they meet the father. So we didn't plan it that way. At least I didn't.
That's right.
I didn't plan it that way. But I think that's kind of fun that he met the next episode that we watched, not the next episode in the series. He meets the father. I don't have any notes on this episode. Do you? I don't think it was much different.
No, I mean, you get a sense of their life together because they get mentioning trips that they took. And so that is funny because you can even look at this as a classist system.
Sure.
That, like, it's like, oh God, Darrin has to work so hard. When they can just twinkle their nose and be in another country. And they seem to have, a wealth of unlimited funds to live these certain lives.
Right.
And so and I remember feeling like watching Sam's parents talking, it's like, oh, this almost feels like they're putting Darrin down. Because they were always traveling the world. Right. I have something on episode 12, I'm sure you appreciated this one. Speaking of the sexist remarks, Larry Tate's...
Oh, God. I have a lot of notes on number 12.
Larry Tate's wife is pregnant, but she has not told him yet. And he basically tells his wife that she should exercise. Quote,
Yep.
she's getting a bit thick in the waist.
So, but to set it up, he doesn't know that she's pregnant.
He doesn't know she's pregnant.
Everybody thinks that Samantha's pregnant.
Right.
He doesn't know that she is pregnant. And everyone's doting on Samantha. And then there's this conversation. Go ahead.
And, really quick, we'll get, So he says, getting a little bit thick in the waist. But then to make it worse, I thought this was the more insulting line. He says, maybe you could exercise during the day. Like, almost like, I don't want to see you exercising. Maybe you can get it done, right?
Just get it done.
But then while I'm at work.
Again, oh my God. So sexist. That was really, seriously?
First of all.
And again, everyone's laughing. They think it's hilarious. So that episode was really, really something. So some of the lines that I wrote down, and they're very similar, but when, what's his wife's name? Louise. When Larry's wife, Louise, and Sam are talking about her potentially being pregnant, Samantha says, it's the most wonderful thing that can happen to a woman. Okay, well, some women, sure, but not necessarily all women. And then later on in the episode, Larry says, they're talking again about that. Larry says to Darrin, it's probably the most important moment in a woman's life. Oh, it was when telling her husband that she's pregnant. Because Larry overhears this, of course, this comic thing, overhears Sam talking, thinking Sam's pregnant, and tells Darrin that Sam's pregnant. And so Darrin's going to call Samantha. And he's like, no, this is the most important thing that a woman could ever do. Tell her husband. It was really, really funny. Did you notice? I'm sure you did. So Darrin now he's getting a little panicky because he doesn't know what his children might look like, or if they'll be witches or not. And he has this sort of daydream maybe. I don't think he was visualizing what might happen. And so she comes in with 6 kids or so, all flying around on brooms in witch attire. Are you going to say who it is?
And one of them is Marsha Brady.
So, yes, Marsha Brady, Maureen McCormick. And I had to look at it. She's never changed. I mean, she looks exactly the same. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that's Maureen McCormick.
Yeah.
So I looked her up, right?
Yeah.
That was her, but she was, what do they say when they don't say...
extra.
Yes.
Or non-speaking role.
Non-speaking, or whatever, non-credited or something, right? But she's in a couple of other seasons of Bewitched as Endora as a child.
What?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Isn't that hilarious?
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to see those episodes now. So that was really, really cool to see her. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so, so neat. The other thing that was really interesting is they're all drinking martinis.
But Darrin says, when he thinks it's Sam, he says, you sure you should be drinking that? But why? Did they know enough?
Yes, so they think that Samantha's pregnant.
Right.
So Larry and Darrin think that Samantha's pregnant. So they go to they go to their house, and Samantha is fixing drinks for everyone, because that's what the wife does, is fixes everybody drinks. And she says, I'll have one. Or maybe Darrin was fixing the drinks or something. But she says, I'll have one. And they were both like, are you sure you should be having one? And she's like, oh, yes, I'd like one. Not, they think she's pregnant.
Right.
In the meantime, Louise keeps saying, I'll have a drink. I'll have a drink.
No.
I'll have a drink. And they're ignoring her because they're doting on Samantha.
1,000%. I guess my point is, historically, did we know enough in the medical community to know that drinking...
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Apparently
but then
not.
why? That's what I didn't understand. Why did they say, Sam, are you sure you should?
I think maybe it was okay to have a little or something. Because even they said just one's okay. Or something like that, right? Yep. And I think they're all smoking too.
So really quick on episode 20. The one issue I had...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Before we move on,
Sure.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to mention, so this whole... this whole episode is about Louise getting pregnant. There is no mention of the pregnancy, the birth, or the child until season 2, episode 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because Louise is in a later episode of the ones we watched, and she's not even showing.
Nope, she's not showing.
Yeah.
There's no mention of the child. There's no pregnancy or anything. Because that's what made me think of it. I'm like, what did she have the baby?
Yeah.
But there's no mention of it ever until season 2.
Because that other episode that she's in, she should have been showing.
Yes.
I mean, I thought that was a little annoying.
It kind of shows you, like, that they're such minor characters, not even paying attention to anything on them at all. So go on, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so the one big critique besides this blatant sexism is the plots. Like, I think particularly in the later episodes, I found some of the other episodes felt long to me.
Yes.
Like they were a little exhausting.
Yes.
So episode 20 is a good example of this. I don't know the name of the episode, but
it's Your Witch is Showing.
Your Witch is Showing.
That's the name of the episode.
And
it's when Darrin's
assistant. Yep. Okay. Within 9 minutes, did you understand that Darrin is very busy? Darrin needs an assistant. He has a big pitch meeting. They show it. He gets a case of the hiccups. The assistant saves the day. Darrin gets stuck in an elevator, and the kid meets with a new big client. And our client doesn't like certain words. Yep. 9 minutes. That's a lot. And I remember being at the end of that episode of like, what? How long was this episode? And I think that, and the same thing with Ling Ling.
Yeah.
So Ling Ling is a model that Sam has created from a cat because they want someone very feline, Siamese. Like was it Asian or something? It's a little racist.
It's very racist. They're super racist in the show.
Bit racist. So, but even with that one goes from, like, we can't find a model anywhere, and it drags on. And then it's like, oh, Sam makes a model out of a cat. And then she does this, and then she does that. And then the photographer falls in love with her. And then there's a party at the house. But then there's this happens, and it's like, oh my God. That, in the 80s, like, remember the movie Mannequin?
Yes.
Like, they could have done a movie called Ling Ling.
Yes,
like,
with
all of that. Oh, the woman who's really a cat. Like, that is enough to go on for a full-length movie. But I did feel that way, even with Darrin, like, with the busy assistant. It's like, the assistant who's, like, you know, kind of trying to screw him over, but, you know, but is he a witch?
They just did too much with that, I think.
They were overwritten.
They didn't need to do so much, but I understand. They wanted him to feel like so much has happened. This couldn't be just a normal person, right? Quoting normal again. It had to be a witch for this one person to do all this stuff. But they could have stretched it out a little bit. I mean, that was a bit much. Because even the end part, I mean, what did they do at the end? Because I feel like you just described the whole episode.
Darrin punches him in the face.
Oh my God.
And then demotes him. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you go to Human Resources.
Oh, there's no human resources in
job.
any of these companies. No human resources. We never talked about number 11, which is the perfume ad, and how sexist they were with that. They're trying to find a sexy woman to be in the ad, and it ends up being, was that the one where she ended up being a witch? Like Samantha Newer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was like a rival of Samantha's. But that was another thing that was like so sexist.
Well, because, like, yeah. But also...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's very similar, because in fact, you know what I thought that was? I thought that was the woman from episode 1.
Yes.
They look very similar.
Yes.
But it's that thing where it's like, Samantha is so doting to Darrin that her anger, she really takes out her anger in some interesting places. It's almost always against a woman.
Right.
And it's weird. I remember I was like, wow, she will absolutely, no holds barred, use her witch powers against women. But That's not true because the Darrin's top client, or whatever she did with him, but that was self-defense. I felt,
but it's never against Darrin. Like Darrin,
but I think it's a little more petty with the woman. Like there's that thing where the women go over her house and like one's looking under the furniture. They were. They're looking for labels and everything.
Yes, they were a little bit.
Yeah,
I remember that. They were just a little snobby. But I did want to mention in that number 11, aside from her being completely sexist, like she walks in the room and they literally move their head up and down. And I get it's a model, but they're moving her head up and down, checking out the entire body up and down. And the woman's just standing there like, go ahead, look. But did you find it odd that Larry is just like, he would totally have cheated? Mm-hmm. Like, over and over and over again, he's like just waiting for the opportunity. It was like a little crazy. But yeah, so that was funny. But one thing I did want to mention is, did you notice the special effects in number 11 when they were at the restaurant? Did you notice how they did that? Special effects?
Oh, everyone was frozen. And
did you notice how they did it?
No.
It was a picture. It was just a picture of the crowd behind them.
Oh, wow.
And that's why nobody moved. And so in the forefront, they're sitting at the table. Okay. And in the background is just a picture of the crowded restaurant. Oh, I thought that was pretty brilliant. Yeah. Pretty brilliant. That's what I'm telling you. Like,
however they did it worked. I was really impressed. Even like when the elf, comes to visit and he doesn't speak at all, but it's like the camera sort of like,
he's supposed to be shy.
Yeah, so he doesn't always reveal his whole self.
Right.
And so like you'll see half of his body, and then like there's one point towards the end where he finally reveals his whole self, but it's like romp.
Yeah.
And like and the camera's moving up and like his starts appearing out of nowhere. But even that was done well. I mean,
I can't imagine the work it went to they had to go through to do these episodes. And did you mention 35 episodes in this season 1?
Yeah.
That's a lot of freaking episodes.
Yeah.
That's insane. Mm-hmm. For this level of comedy, right? All of these special effects, I don't know what it took for them to make this movie. I mean, this show. Yeah. But it had to have cost them a lot of money back then.
Yeah, so I guess they just didn't... how many weeks are even left? 35, 52, 17 weeks. So it's like just... summer.
Like you have the summer off, yeah.
But I feel like... So I guess summer starts earlier as time went on. Because now there's only 20... You had 23 episodes. And
you're assuming you can do all of this...
season.
You're assuming you can do all of this in 1 week. Although I did read that they did use a lot of footage from other episodes. Like there's one episode, I forget which one it was, but... Samantha and Endora were about to leave, and they kind of like shrunk. Remember how they went like, "All right, let's go," and they went.
Yeah.
That was footage taken directly from another episode. So I wonder how many of that is in the show. But that was like exact same footage, which I thought was kind of interesting. What else? I did like the Ling Ling episode.
I love the line, and this is, and I did laugh when she was like, she's been through a lot, but she always manages to land on her feet.
Oh my gosh, so many of those. Emily watched this with me, and Matt, we were all laughing at some of the lines, and just her acting like a cat and things like that. She says, when she first walks into the meeting, your wife suggested I might serve your needs. I'm adaptable and agile. Would you be interested in me? Like, very seductively. I'm like, oh my God, are you a prostitute?
I know.
And then Gladys at the end, she's like, I feel badly about the cat, because at the very beginning, the cat, she thought had eaten her bird.
Right.
Do you remember what she said at the very end of the episode? She felt bad, and she was going to give some milk to the cat, because now Ling Ling is back. Well, right. I forget at the time. I forget. She left out milk for the cat. And Abner's like, what are you doing? She's like, I feel bad. I accused her of molesting Tweety. Boy, just throwing that word right up there. I mean, it's crazy how dated this is in that way. And the way that they, the wording that they use. It was really interesting.
So episode 20 is a good example. This is the evil assistant of Endora. I wrote it down because she was like, oh, like Endora, she was actually like, you actually believe she was caring about Darrin. She was like, oh, poor Denton. Darwin. Duncan.
She was great. She was absolutely the highlight of this whole show.
As a side note, I wrote this in my notes. That particular episode where they have a client that doesn't like certain words. So Darren's in advertising. I'm also in advertising, and it's sad. I'm just gonna say it. It is sad how little things have changed, and like that of the things that like. We're constantly...
you're still dealing with human nature, right?
Yeah.
Human nature hasn't changed.
I'll never say where I work, but it's like, I work in advertising, and it's like you get these, business partners or clients and stuff that are like, they don't like that word. And it's like, how about the rest of it? They get so stuck on
that one
word. But I
word.
appreciated Bewitched being, I appreciate Bewitched representing that world, because they didn't have to do it at all. They didn't have to show Darren's work life very much, but they often did. It was interesting.
It was interesting. Yeah, I liked how they did that too.
Should we take a little break?
Yeah, let's take a little break. We have a few more episodes to go through, but yeah, let's take a little break. I need to wet my whistle. All right, we'll be right back. Hey there, it's Brian and Christina. We just wanted to take this break to thank you for listening to Old Roommates, the only podcast that revisits pop culture through a middle-aged lens. Please subscribe to Old Roommates on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And give us a rating or review while you're there.
And if you have any questions, comments, or observations, shoot us an email at oldroommatespod@gmail.com. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Old Roommates. Thanks for listening, and now, back to the show. And we're back, talking about Bewitched, the classic 60s My Wife is a Witch sitcom.
Love it.
Starring Elizabeth Montgomery. We haven't talked specifically about the acting, and I thought Elizabeth Montgomery was really good.
The first moment you see her, she is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
She is all glamour movie star. Beautiful. Beautiful woman. And I agree. I think that she was really a good actress. Yeah. I think they all did pretty well. I feel like Dick York was a bit overacting in a lot of it.
Yeah, like I said, was a bit Jim Carrey.
Yeah, just a bit comical when it wasn't necessarily called for. But Endora, I thought was perfect. Yeah. I just loved her. Even Gladys was a little bit over the top, but it was needed. Like, I think she was fine. She was actually quite... She was quite successful as an actress. Leading up to that, she did some stage shows and things like that. She didn't win any awards or anything, but sadly she passed away in the middle of the series. Did you know that she was replaced?
Oh my god, I didn't know that's why she was replaced.
Yeah, she passed away from ovarian cancer.
Oh,
yeah, super super sad. She and her birthday was October 16th. By the way, my birthday.
Oh!
Isn't that cool? But anyway, yeah, she was played by Alice Pierce, and I think she made it through some of the second season, but she never told anybody she had cancer.
Oh my god. It's giving me flashbacks of 8 is Enough.
Yeah, same thing. It's very similar.
I will say this, the thing about Gladys that I didn't love, and although you're now sort of convincing me that it was needed, was she would look at the camera directly and make a weird face, and I don't think the face did her any favors, and I think it sort of broke the fourth wall that way, where I'm like, I get that we needed that direct humor, and actually to that point, within the realm of this story, someone has to be surprised. Like, someone, meaning...
Yes.
Because the magic is so seamless. So either you're the witch making the magic, or you're the person living in the magic, and you're not even noticing the difference.
Right.
So, you need Gladys to be like, isn't this shocking, Abner? Like, you kind of, to your point, you did need that. So.
Yeah, and then even Abner just being like... it's not possible. So almost bringing that reality back to
taking
it.
Out her medicine.
Saying no, have some cough syrup. Take some cough syrup.
I did love Abner though.
Abner, yeah, I really liked Abner too. He was great. He was totally Mr. Roper. Totally Mr. Roper. Larry Tate was Larry Tate. Has not changed at all from my memory.
He wasn't also the Brady Bunch boss. He wasn't Mr.
I don't think so.
What was Mike Brady's boss's name?
I'm not really sure. I don't remember Mike Brady's boss, to be honest.
Remember when Carol had laryngitis and she's like, I wouldn't go on that barge.
It would be interesting if it was him. I'll take a quick look and see.
I feel like he looked similar. So while you're looking that up, I want to bring up episode 35, which is the second to last episode. Now, this episode, from some research, was pretty groundbreaking. And which is funny, coming from a show like Bewitched, as to why it was groundbreaking. Basically, the female leads, Samantha and Endora, are having dinner at a restaurant in episode 35, an Italian restaurant. And they're talking to the owner, and the restaurant is very, very quiet. It's dead. He has no business other than these two women. And he's saying, well, everyone loves pizza, and I don't serve pizza. And I just serve, old-fashioned, Italian, authentic dishes. And they're like, this is the best Italian food I've ever had. I feel like I'm sitting in wherever, and blah, blah, blah. And they love the restaurant so much, and they decide to help him. They don't involve, Sam tells Darrin, but Darrin, unfortunately, is helping his pizza client at the same time. So the women take it upon themselves to help, and they do use their magic.
Yes.
They are just buying space in the newspaper
with
magic.
Did you find that interesting, that argument that when Darrin did find out about that? And I thought it was, in advertising, I appreciated it, but I'm not in advertising. I thought you might too. Where she's like, well, I didn't think anything was wrong with it. And he's like listing all the reasons why. Yeah. Like, people are, paying money. And now this person's, all these valid reasons why she shouldn't have done it. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. Someone knows what they're talking about when they're making up that. And, but actually, to be honest, I really like the ad that Eat at Mario's, is that what it was? But they did sandwich boards. They had skywriting. They did giant billboards. They had a talking dog. They did some magic in a talking dog. But it was groundbreaking for the time that women, were shown truly creating a full-on marketing campaign. On TV, and solving the problems, not involving any men. They actually don't even involve Mario. Mario doesn't even know what's happening.
No
He's like, what do you mean? What ad campaign?
I was like, I have 2 weeks full of reservations. Then they also deal with the pizza client who's like, wait a minute. You told me, it's like, you told me to have the small ad in here and to write all this stuff and all these, whatever. Instead, this guy just has Eat at Mario's and he's a big success. So I think, but I liked the episode. It felt different than the other episodes, probably because they're just using their magic freestyle all over the place. Right. And they're being very resourceful, and they're making a difference. And it's all for good. Even Endora, for that matter, is using it for good.
And I think that, for me, made it feel different. The fact that Endora and Samantha were working together. Whereas a lot of times they're on the outs. Yeah, and she's trying not to use her magic, and Dora uses the magic, and now Samantha has to use magic to undo what Endora did. In this one, they're completely working together, and they're doing it to help some stranger.
Yeah.
And it was nice. It was a nice feeling episode. So what's interesting is when Brian suggested this episode, so we had these 10 episodes mapped out, and then you had done your research and said, oh, I want to swap out one episode for episode number 35 because it's supposed to be groundbreaking. You did not tell me why it was groundbreaking.
Right.
And I said, okay, that's great. So I'm watching it, and I'm like, I wonder what's going to be groundbreaking about it. And to be honest, I didn't understand really blatantly that reason. But what I did notice, and I'm like, I wonder if this is it. When they were at, part of their campaign was this little girl came up to the ice cream man. I don't want ice cream. I want pizza.
Yeah.
And then the next little person that went to ask was a little African-American boy.
That's right.
And he did the same thing. He's like, I don't want ice cream. I want pizza. And I thought to myself, I wonder if this is one of the first episodes of a sitcom that had hired, a child of color for just sort of like as an extra speaking role. That was the one thing I thought it might be, the groundbreaking part of it.
Yeah. I don't know. Because I know there's that show Julia with Diane Carroll, and I don't know what year that was. But yeah, that's interesting. I truly, to be honest, and maybe we've been doing this a while, but like, I felt that too. I was like, oh wow, a black character in Bewitched. I mean, we've watched plenty of episodes, and there's no main character, and so just have this like little side, little kid.
And there wasn't a storyline attached to
it, right?
Do you know what I mean? There was no reason for it, which was refreshing, right?
After enduring the Ling Ling episode and how delicately it dealt with race. But it's funny because you can look at Bewitched as what is the friggin' word, Christina? Oh my god, my
Feminist?
brain. No, as a metaphor for race relations.
Oh, that's a metaphor for gay relations.
They say
that's
right. They say mixed marriage. They say
they call it a mixed marriage. Right.
They say mixed marriage a lot in this. Later on, shortly before Elizabeth Montgomery's death, she said she watches Bewitched now, and it has similarities to what you just said, to the gay LGBT experience, where you can't be yourself. In closed doors you can, just don't tell anybody.
Right.
Like, you're fine, I love you, but don't tell anyone.
Right.
Like, other people
we don't want anyone to know who you really are.
Yeah.
Right.
And she said, and she's like, and I wonder if maybe some of the creators and people that are making it felt that same way too, that this is a bit of a message.
No, go ahead.
The only other thing I'll say is that she wore a heart pendant, Elizabeth Montgomery, and she wore it, I think, in every season. And she said partly because of the friction with Darrin, she said she always wanted to remind the audience that she loved him.
And she does play with it a lot.
Yeah.
If you notice, yeah. I don't know if you were aware that Dick Sargent actually is gay. Or was gay.
Oh, no.
So he was a gay actor. And in fact, when he died, there were rumors that he died of AIDS.
Okay.
Which was not true. He actually died of prostate cancer.
Oh, okay.
Which is sad. When you were talking about, the metaphors of being different and staying in the house and all that kind of stuff, it made me wonder how many people on the production crew were actually gay or lesbian or anything,
Yeah.
It just makes you wonder, if this isn't an accident, that it was their way of
saying,
speaking,
hey, this is wrong.
Look at how wrong this is, but they didn't have that same voice that they do today.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Very interesting indeed. Sad. Dick Sargent, prostate cancer, 1994. Alice Pierce, ovarian cancer. There were a bunch of... Agnes Moorehead also died from cancer.
Elizabeth Montgomery, didn't she die of cancer too?
There was so many... Dick York left, and then he... How did he die? I forget. Elizabeth Montgomery, colorectal cancer.
Oh my god.
And Agnes Moorehead, uterine cancer.
Wow.
So sad. I don't know how Dick York actually passed away, but super, super, super sad.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
And on that note.
And we did talk about Cousin Edgar briefly. That was the last episode of the season, The Elf. So,
and a lot of physical comedy.
Lots of physical comedy, yeah.
The Elf basically is there to, I'm gonna get it so wrong. But, like, he basically is, like, sort of screwing around with Darrin's client, and Darrin keeps jeopardizing the case, and, like, he pulls the chair out from the client, and the client falls flat down. But then the elf, turns the tables on the competition. Yes. So then he starts behaving weird, tying the shoelaces together.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting. So this Edgar guy is supposed to be an elf from Samantha's childhood, and he only showed up when she was in trouble. And he helped her get out of the trouble. And again, he doesn't speak throughout the whole episode because he's very shy. But he saw Darrin as her being in trouble, which is why he tried to sabotage him.
Oh, interesting.
Did you not see that?
Nope. You know what I felt?
What?
I felt he was always the trouble. I felt she couldn't connect it. To me, it was like, oh, he was always there whenever I got into trouble. It's like, or he was invisible?
That is
did
so
he
interesting.
Cause your trouble? Maybe he caused her trouble.
Oh, wow. See? Look at how different we are, Brian. I love when that happens, though, when you say something something that's so simple.
Everybody, here's your homework. Watch episode 36. It's on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
And actually, it might not look like it's available on Prime. It won't have the Prime banner, but it's through IMDb on Prime. So you can actually go to Bewitched, Season 1. The one I watched was colorized, or go to your local library.
Yeah, I got mine from the library.
And watch episode 36.
And it was in black and white, and I appreciated the black and white.
Yeah. And tell us if you think Cousin
Edgar.
Cousin Edgar
was good
or bad.
Yep.
All right, so do we have questions?
I do. I have an FMK for you.
Okay.
Do you want me to go first? I'll do first.
Yeah, sure, please.
Okay. So here are my choices. It's not a whole lot of choices, to be honest.
No, I know.
So you probably can guess what I'm going to say. So we have Darrin.
Yeah.
We have Larry.
Yeah.
And we have Abner.
Okay.
What?
I'm excited.
Wow.
Yeah.
When I said Abner, his face just lit up like a Christmas tree.
Okay, this is very easy for me.
Okay.
I'm going to fuck Darrin.
Interesting.
I thought he was handsome. You didn't think he was handsome? I don't know. I liked him.
His eyes were a bit too big for me.
Interesting. Absolutely marrying Abner. I just feel like, why delay it? Like, why delay? It's like he's comfortable.
You just want his medicine. I know where you're at.
No, I want him. Like, it's fine. Like he all he wants is to sit there and read the paper and watch TV. I mean, or whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, as long.
Oops, sorry, I just knocked over some Christmas decorations.
A handcrafted.
Is it
wooden
from Germany?
Candle. Of course it is.
Jesus Christ. All right, I'll pick it up.
All right. Well, no, it's what. Well, then kill Larry. Larry was someone I did not care for.
Yeah, Larry. I think that's. I think that's the correct answer. I think
thank
Darrin. I think Darrin would be a bit much to be married to.
Well, he works a lot, too.
He works a lot. He's pretty...
But he didn't say
take him out of the sitcom and make it into a drama, and he's super controlling.
Oh, no, there's problems, too. And I do wonder, actually, and I'm sure this happens, when we meet Darrin's parents, that would be an interesting dynamic. Maybe he identifies... I mean, I
remember who they were. I can picture them in my head.
It's so weird, though, because you have to imagine... this being a pretty easy pill for, like, say, television audiences to swallow. Mm-hmm. Because this thing was a hit right from the start. So they had to go along with Darrin being so controlling that he doesn't want his wife to use powers that would make their lives infinitely easier.
Right.
And that was my big hurdle in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I wonder if in the 60s that was it. It's like, oh yeah, no. The husband's in charge. Mm-hmm. And it's normal.
And that's the way she wanted it to be, too. Although I will say, on a final note here, Samantha has got to be the worst at keeping promises. Every single episode, I promised I wouldn't use witchcraft. 10 seconds later... I promised. Oops. The kitchen's a mess. Bloop. Well, I mean, come on.
It's more like tinkle, tinkle, tink. Like, beak, beak. But it's, there wouldn't have been a show.
No, I know. Yeah. But she was, like, ridiculous. Every single time she was, like, promising. I promise I won't use my magic. And I'm not even kidding you. Like 5 seconds later, she's doing it, and not even like stupid stuff, like frosting a cake.
There were things. I know. There were things. There were a couple. I thought we were ending this, but we're not.
I know. Lots of
But here's the thing. One thing that made me laugh is when she is doing housework, right?
Yes.
And instead, like, we have seen her now in multiple episodes go, tinkle, tinkle, tink, and the whole house is boom, right?
Bling.
Boom. Like, it's like she's moved in 5 seconds, right?
Yep.
But she has to do the housework, and in a way, maybe this is to your point, like she actually has, like, the sort of the animated housework happening. So meaning, the housework is happening. She's not doing it, but it's happening, and like in like real time. And it's like, wait a minute, can you just twinkle your nose and the house is done?
Right?
Like, why are you even going through the motions of this?
Do you remember? I think it was the second episode that we watched. Darrin, they get home from dinner or something, and he wants to fool around. He doesn't say that. But he's like, come upstairs, and she's like, oh, but the kitchen is a mess. And it is a mess. I don't know how anybody makes such a mess with 2 people. It's a mess.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, don't take too long. And he like walks out of the room and goes upstairs. Like, don't offer to help or anything.
Know.
And then she used magic, which I was happy that she did. Yeah. But I was laughing at that so much. Oh my gosh. But yeah, she was the worst at keeping... Oh, remember the episode? It was the episode with Louise. And she wanted her to go to the doctors with her to see if she was pregnant. And she had to clean her house or something and get dressed. Yeah. And instead of using the nose twitch, or the zoom, she made herself go super fast. Super fast.
That's what I meant. That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
So she's like,
it's like, so it's like going through the motions.
Right. She's still doing it, but it's just super.
There was something else, I think, with like lamps or something that were on shelves, and it was like blink, and it was like blink, 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 blink. It's like, can you just twinkle your nose and have all of them on the shelf? Yeah. Anyway.
So funny.
So how do you feel about it?
I feel great about it. I really was so happy. When I first started watching it, it seemed a bit long. And I think it was chalked up to it having more... It seemed very stagey.
Yeah.
Like I was watching a stage show, which was fine. Mm-hmm. Once I got used to that...
Yes.
And kind of relaxed a little bit, and it's storytelling or whatever, and being able to relax and just watch it, I really enjoyed it. In fact, I kind of want to watch, like, other seasons.
Interesting. I liked it. I thought I liked her inventiveness with problem solving sometimes. Like, it's like, oh, that's one way to solve that problem.
Right.
But I think I think there was something where, the point of it being sexist, but yet she is like, absolutely, dear. But then as soon as the door closes, she's like, bleep, bleep. It's very entertaining. I do think some of the storylines are so overwritten for a 26-minute sitcom.
Yes,
but
for sure.
But I enjoyed it too. I found that I wasn't like, oh, another episode. I liked watching it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I would like to revisit some of them that had her cousin Serena, also played by Elizabeth Montgomery. Do you remember that?
No.
Oh my gosh, how could you not? She was a recurring character.
Wow.
She had dark black hair, and she was kind of like the anti-Samantha.
Yeah.
But she was played by Elizabeth
That's
Montgomery.
Amazing.
And then I would love to see some of the episodes with Tabitha, because I used to really enjoy them. And I would like to see some with Dick Sargent, because I really enjoyed Dick Sargent.
Do you remember the gossip, the rumor? This is like a rumor from the 80s that Madonna was Tabitha.
Oh my gosh, no. But you know what I did hear, the rumor, was Belinda Carlisle. That's what I used to hear, was Belinda Carlisle was Tabitha. Isn't that funny?
It's so weird.
It is.
All right. Well,
anyway, wait, you never asked me my question.
Oh my gosh!
He's putting his notebook down. He's like, all right. He's ready to walk out of the room.
Tink. That never happened. You'll forget that always. Okay. Well, Christina, Gladys Kravitz is so nosy.
Oh, how nosy is she?
Nothing is sacred. Her idea of a good time is eavesdropping on blank.
Oh, God. I'm coming up with very little. I guess I have.
Maybe, is it too open-ended?
It's a little open-ended, but that's okay.
So that's why I added this one line. Nothing is sacred.
Okay.
Her idea of a good time...
Well, now there's only one answer.
Is there?
All right, her idea of a good time is eavesdropping.
I had 2 answers.
All right, my first answer was going to be a nursing home. And then you added the nothing's sacred.
No, that was in the first part of the question. Absolutely. It's so nosy, so how nosy she is. Said nothing is sacred.
All right, so that was nursing home, and then my second thought was in a church.
Ah, damn. All right, I had 2 answers. My first one was AA, an AA meeting.
God.
And then my second one was confession.
Oh, that's good. So that's close.
Church,
that's close. That's not too bad. All right, so great episode of ours as well. I guess that's it.
And that is it for us and for this episode of Old Roommates. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Old Roommates on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And give us a rating or review while you're there, please.
If you have an idea for the show or a suggestion or comment, you can email us at oldroommatespod@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Old Roommates. This is Christina.
And this is Brian.
Thanks again for listening. Until next time.